Hey Moonies, welcome to the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. I'm your host, Victoria L. Johnson, and I'm here with Evan Crusher Jones. He's a doctoral student studying urban ruins, abandonment, and space and place, which we'll talk about later because I have no idea what that means. He's also worked as a content producer and digital editor for the American Film Institute and other places, and helped manage the Anime Expo, where he parked a tank in front of the Los Angeles Convention Center. We'll also talk about that. He's also a YouTuber under the name Crusher Jones, where he posts reviews, sometimes interviews, and life advice, including some info about his time in Japan, which we will also talk about. I'm super excited to talk about all of these things, obviously. Hey, Evan, how you doing?
I am doing awesome. How are you?
I am good. I'm very excited to talk about all the things with you.
Yeah, I'm just letting the caffeine kick in, so it's like, all right, time to go on there and rattle on.
That sounds perfect. Caffeine and Sailor Moon sounds like a perfect combination to me. Yeah.
Indeed.
Oh. So, speaking of that, what's your first memory of watching Sailor Moon?
So I got to watch part of it when it aired originally in the United States, and it was like, what is this weird thing that I'm witnessing as I'm trying to wake up and go to school? Because much like a certain character, I was never awake in school. And those were my first memories of it, and I was taken by it and intrigued by it, but I was still kind of piecing it together because I saw it in bits and pieces and chunks, and those were also the days when it was available via fansub and VHS, so you see bits and pieces of it here and there, and I think just the design stuck with me more so than anything else.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So this was this high school, middle school?
Yeah, that was high school, so,
Okay.
And I got into HS around 95.
Got it. Oh, that makes sense, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. There's some morning. I always love it because everyone well, not everyone, but some people watched it in the mornings before school, and some people watched it after school on Toonami. And then every so often, someone will come to me with like a random thing, like I saw it at midnight on this random channel, and I was like, what? But anyway.
Oh yeah,
cool.
it was on like one of those things like in Austin they used to show fan subs on public access with subtitles. I was like, God, I hate you people, 'cause you lucky ducks. Oh my goodness.
I know.
But yeah, and by the way, Toonami fans, as much as I love Toonami, boy did you get it easy, huh?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we didn't have to do that morning stuff.
Up the hills, through snow, up and down, no shoes.
Is that what you I had to be up at the crack of dawn to watch Sailor Moon.
You know what we had for breakfast? They punched us in the face and gave us nothing else.
Right. We were lucky to make it out with our lives.
DVD, we had them inscribe it on stone tablets and
Right. We had floppy disks. We were lucky to get half of an episode on it. But yeah, probably not even, honestly.
do you know what real player is? Sit down.
Yeah. Oh gosh, but yeah, Toonami was awesome. The mornings on the random public access channels were also awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, did you have you've also like kind of started rewatching it recently too, I think, or watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. I've been Japanese animation adjacent since the early 90s. And I should mention I grew up in Houston, and I was around a lot of the ADV folks, and later Sentai as well, and we'll get to that. But so there was a pretty steady influx in my kind of nerd circles of like comic books and trash culture and all the stuff that we all love. And that happened to be around there, and so it just kind of filtered in, you know?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Did you have a favorite Sailor Scout or Senshi?
Oh yeah, a bit of a blank on that one. Oh man, you're gonna I know you're gonna laugh at me, and it's gonna create a conflict with somebody I'm very much a friend of, but
I'll only laugh if it's Tuxedo Mask. Obviously he's not a Senshi, but go ahead.
Well, Sailor Mars.
Oh, that's not laughable.
It just makes me feel like such a basic Scorpio, but yeah.
Oh, that is laughable. Yeah, it is a basic Scorpio thing. I mean, it's also an Aries thing, if that makes you feel better. I think every Aries who's come on this podcast, their favorite is Sailor Mars.
Yeah, it's just... and the funny thing is, I remember from the early days, if you want to talk about memories of it, I didn't remember it being so salty, but...
Oh
I watch it
man.
now. It's like, damn, don't do that to your just with the bus throwing. Like,
I mean, sometimes you gotta throw a bus. What about Sailor Mars though that made you like her?
there's this kind of competency there,
Hmm.
that air about it. I mean, and again, as I've readdressed and reanalyzed how I feel about the character, certain things are far less charming than they used to be. Keep in mind, we're also talking about a significant age difference.
Mm-hmm.
And one unique thing about that show is like, oh, these people are at this point in their lives, and I was originally when I watched it that point in my life, and now it's like, oh my goodness, it's so much different. But yeah, just sort of that kind of like I've got it together vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Have you had any standout episodes or moments so far in your rewatch or in the original time when you watched it? Do you kind of remember anything?
This is gonna mark me as such a nerd because keep in mind I'm literally studying communication, but I'm studying communication by way of looking at buildings. The way the city is a character,
Mm-hmm.
and very much a character, and how real places in Tokyo were integrated into the story, and so it became more about me about this aesthetic appreciation, and but I'm filtering that back through interacting with the characters. So it's mostly just been like, wow, that's a really cool shot they did there. And like, you can go to Tokyo and like tour the places that shots were modeled off, et cetera, et cetera. And I love that kind of thing. So it's mostly been about like picking the city apart through this narrative.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. You're actually the first person to mention it in that way because the city in Sailor Moon is very much a character. Like you see so many people create like Sailor Moon aesthetic Tokyo shots or, like art pieces. I've actually had a few of them as my background for my phone for a while.
Yeah,
So
and like
yeah.
people going to visit Nishizabu and like, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
I got to check out this neighborhood, and oh yeah, this was used in this, and this was used in this. And now I will tell you that the live action show, the Japanese live action show, is so great.
It is.
Oh my god, so it's such a underrated dark horse. It's so awesome. But there will be like you can get a list of locations and go there, and that was something that I've been interested in a lot of Japanese animation, but Sailor Moon in particular does a really good job of portraying the city as a character.
Yeah, even like I did ended up seeing a few when I went to Japan, a few places. I think maybe two places, and I wanted to go to or the temple that's modeled after, or that Ray's temple is modeled after, and it really is like you have to get on a bus to get there, and I'm just like, and it probably takes about the same amount of time they portrayed it in the series, and it's just little details like that are really cool.
Yeah, and one thing is you start looking at stories and worlds as meta text, it starts to have this kind of it feels so much more immersive, even though it's obviously a work of fiction. But yeah, I was really taken back by that. And to be very, very fair, I love that era of animation, the actual quality of it, the way it's done, the way it's colored, the way the whole thing coalesces as an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I think of when I think of Sailor Moon, and it's why it's been such fun to rewatch and actually get to spend the time with. Although I may not be as experienced as previous Moonies who keep bringing up stuff that's like 80 episodes away from me.
Hey, I'm sorry, man. I hate spoilers as well, but this is a Sailor Moon fan club podcast, and the show is 30 years old.
Fair point. Fair point. Fair point. If only teaching, working, going to school, and getting a doctorate did not take up so much time. But I got a break coming up, so bring on the marathon.
There you go. Actually, wait, not 30 years yet. My bad. Almost 30 years.
Oh, well, start we got to
I
start
know.
over again,
Sorry.
right? Yeah.
Actually, it's been 29.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Well, I guess we
I'm
got to
sorry
delete.
for all the spoilers.
Yeah, let's go ahead and delete the whole podcast from iTunes.
Right? Yeah.
We quit. Actually, no, you quit. I was
I'm
good.
just gonna go apologize to everyone for all the spoilers. It's been 29 years, not 30. Totally missed the mark on that.
Rest in peace, your mentions.
Right. um, but yeah, so you went to Japan too, which I thought was really cool. Were you able to visit any of the places that Sailor Moon took place, or was this like not aligned in your life?
Oh, I lived in Japan for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I did a year on the JET program in the south of Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a much different program now, and I need to do a video on it because people have been asking, but I always have to tell them, look, it's been to the point where it's almost apples and oranges now. But I did a year in the south of Japan. As much as I appreciated it, and it was nice to put money in my pocket and everything, I was like, geez, I was 24, 25 at that time, and a part of me was like, you want to spend the rest of your mid-20s in the middle of nowhere, or the most interesting city on earth several hundred miles to the north of you? So I left that after 1 year and got a job teaching with Board of Education in Kawasaki, and just started rocking around Tokyo from there 2 years after that. But yeah, I definitely did a decent amount of anime tourism, and often inadvertently.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it's weird because like you'll think you'll have these dramatic moments, and you just turn the corner. It's like, oh yeah, that's Tokyo Tower. Okay, cool.
There were times where I would walk around and I'm like, this feels familiar, and I don't know why.
Well, this is a very much of a right turn, but it's one thing I like to mention when I talk about Japan. They spent all this time giving us indoctrinations long term, like orientation about do this and don't do that and whatever else, but they never mention like, oh, by the way, you see those curves, how they're all 90-degree right angles, and how the cars are there, and you see those mirrors up there, use those mirrors, because if you don't, you might get hit by a car.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was riding a bike, and that not necessarily not a very, very close call, but a close enough call for me to be like, how come you told me how to exchange business cards 50 times but never told me that I'd get creamed on a bike?
Well, then you got to live your life as an anime character for a bit then.
God, it was so scary. So I tell people when they go to Japan, like, no, trust me, use those mirrors, because a couple of us had gotten into near misses and not necessarily misses. So, but yeah, when you visit and understand that, and I actually do not think pedestrians have the right of way from what I've understood. So.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, I definitely got to roll around all those places and do that stuff. It was great. I recommend anybody get the opportunity to travel and do things like that. Go for it.
Yeah, and that's good to know, because I love Japan. And one thing I told myself when I go back is I really wanted to ride a bike, because I saw everyone riding bikes and it seemed like so much fun. But now I know to look for the mirrors, because I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, just use them. I'm still to this day like, I watch so much Japanese pop culture stuff that I just forget. You know what it was? I was late to school. I didn't have toast in my mouth running out the door, but oof, almost got toasted. Thank you.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, back on stateside, in the United States, you parked a tank. How did that happen?
I helped park the tank. Yeah.
You helped park a tank. I'm sorry.
Well, have you heard of the anime Girls in Panzer?
I don't think so. Girls in Panzer?
Panzer. Panzer.
Girls in Panzer. I don't think so.
Well, it's awesome, and it's great, and I had known the people from ADV for a really long time, and a really good friend of mine was working there through marketing stuff, and he calls me up and goes, hey, Evan, we're working on this project. Are you interested in helping? I was like, yeah, sure, of course. What's going on, Lance? And he goes, can you help us find a tank to park in front of the Los Angeles Convention Center? And I'm sitting there on the phone with him, like turning around, like, am I getting candid camera?
Right.
Like, what? I was like, say no more. And we worked through this process, and he actually beat me to the punch as far as, because it was his full-time gig. He managed to find the tank, and so I just started working with his team, is getting things together for the marketing on the ground there with that. And oh my goodness, like they got it all together, and they made it. They had this company ship it out from, I believe, Colorado, and so they had to unpack it. It's the wrong term to use. I keep saying unpack it for some reason. They had to get off this big truck and like bring it out there, and there's footage of my friend like riding in it as they bring it forward and park it, and it's just it was like the wildest 4 days. But yeah, park that tank, which was made up to look like a Panzer, in front of the LACC entrance, so you'd had to pass it going inside. I'll give you an inside baseball moment on this. When they submitted the contract to get everything approved to the people who run Anime Expo, I think they included something in the Anime Expo people. This is a great snap. Included something along the lines of like, and please promise you're not going to use the tank to run over the Funimation booth.
Oh, wow.
To this day, I'm like, I really wish I could have seen that in print. But yeah, that was like a big experiential marketing thing. And I actually had gotten a really bad eye infection at that time that was not getting better. I've fought for a week taking medicine and everything else. And so my friend's like, dude, you're at an anime convention. You have a totally valid reason to wear an eye patch.
So you're like helping to park this tank and wearing an eye patch.
Oh well, I didn't do the driving. I'm not that brave. Stupid brave. But no, I was definitely like helping conduct the stuff, and I gave out so many thousands of buttons, and I was doing just like carnival barking. I'm not hyper extroverted. I just have moments of hyper extroversion, and working in around those cons, like it'd be like the 3 days that I'm going to be loud and boisterous and fun. And then, cue 6 months of reading 3 books a week and listening to music constantly and just kind of nodding my head. So
become the study girl of the lo-fi hip hop, basically.
Oh yeah, the cat hanging out and everything else. Yeah. Chilled cow indeed. But no, that stuff was really fun, and they were about it. Like, it was a really cool thing to do, and it just, as people would be like, tell us something interesting about yourself, job applicant.
That is one thing to bring out, although you may not want to be like girls in Panzer.
Oh, somebody was rude to me at a job interview. They brought in they were actually really cool, but they brought in their boss, and their boss is really rude and condescending and short with me. And I have to mention that one thing about, I just noticed this living overseas as my first formative working experiences in an Asian office, Japanese office specifically. I would wait for the interrogative to talk. And so even now, when people talk to me, they're like, are you going to say something? I was like, oh, were you going to ask a question?
Right.
Combine that with, no, I'm going to let my father, the really smart guy who I think was a drill sergeant, ask me a question before I pop off. And anyway, during this interview, the guy was just kind of condescending and short. And I was like, yes, no, yes. Okay, great. See you later. Take it easy. And because I didn't have any interest in working there. And the person that brought me to his boss's attention said, hey man, were you intimidated during that? And I was like, no, I saw it as his interview to conduct, and I want to see how the flow would be, and I want to see how he'd hold a conversation. And that seemed way more about some issue that your boss had with you than it was about me. So I'm going to deuce out of here, but I'm just going to say, like, I don't need the performance, the grandstanding. It all kind of seemed forced, But about 6 months later, I should mention that guy, the boss, kept asking me, so what'd you make on your SATs? And at that point, I had finished up my master's degree from the University of Southern California with a 3.96 GPA and recommendations from the provost. I was like, I don't know. It was 15 years ago. He asked me multiple times. So I just sent a picture of me on that tank back to the guy that introduced me as boss, who kind of got screwed over in that deal, with the subject line, so what did you make in your SATs? And you open up, there's a picture of me in front of a tank, like the turret point at the LACC.
Like, there's your answer.
Yeah, I'm so, that dude was bummed. He was like, you just seemed like you were being so quiet there. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of how I do.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, but that experience was wonderful. And it's also something that's like, hey, what do you do again? And it's like, oh, I did this. Oh, you're that guy. Well, one of them, but
right.
It was very much a team effort, and I got to give it up to Sentai's team because they worked really hard that time, and I adored those folks. I still talk to them all the time.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so cool.
100%.
And then, so you also worked on some film stuff. You told me you're a content producer and digital editor, so I'm just going to ask, what's your favorite project from like that era in your life?
Oh, the tank, hands down. Like, there was cool stuff going on and other stuff, but that was just like, every now and then you get working in media, you'll have these things where it's like, yeah, I'm sort of into this, and then you'll have these things where it's like, okay, well, this doesn't scratch my particular itch, but I want to do a good job on it because I'm a professional. It allowed me to grow, and I want my word and my worth to be demonstrable as far as what I do. I want to do a good job at stuff. Oh, can I swear?
Yes.
Woohoo! I want to do a good job with shit. But that tank thing was just like pure frosting as far as, work goes. Like, hey, here's all the sugar you want to eat. Have fun.
I love those moments. Yeah.
Yeah, you get those moments to come together. So it was like 4 days of carnival barking, awesome joy. It was really tough. But yeah, there's a lot of other cool things happening around the same time. Because my contract at the AFI kind of ended right as the tank stuff kicked off. So we brought back, Night at the Movies, which was wonderful. And I sent Davey Havoc from the band AFI a note saying, "Hey man, come see Blade Runner with us." And so he came out, and we had this big movie event, and we did all the social. I was working on all the social media stuff at the time, and so it was just like me putting all this stuff together, running around like a madman. And that's the kind of stuff that I remember more so than even like the end result of like, hey, here's this thing that went into it, and I was one of the go-to people that helped put this video game out for Starship Troopers CGI film that was really cool, and that was one of those. Hey, I have a bunch of weird, unrelated requests, and there are going to be a lot of them, and they're going to just kind of leapfrog and chain into one another in weird ways. And I was like, say no more.
Man, that definitely sounds like the media world.
Yeah, it's really true, because you'll have just like, hey, can you do this? And you're like, what, huh?
I can figure it out.
Yeah, but that's also part of the fun. Like, I didn't go to into an office for 3 years. Before I showed up at school, and I'd actually got a gig at the school, and I showed up, and I was like, oh, I should probably learn how to work in an office again where there's not like armor around.
Yeah, that's important.
No, but that kind of like gun at it, go make this thing work no matter what. Because the thing about media is it's the end result that matters with people. They're not like, oh, I see you didn't use this version of this thing that I care about. People will bring that up, but ultimately it's something about like, did you like it? Did you get it? Were you cool with this? Was the quality good?
Yeah, did it come out well?
Yeah, but that kind of period in between that and before I went to do a bunch of work with people related to the MacArthur Foundation and of UC Irvine, that was all just magically awesome and rad and weird.
That sounds fun.
Mm-hmm.
Also, speaking of schools, so tell me about your doctoral, like what you're studying, because I read it and when you said buildings, it made sense. Mm-hmm. But tell me more.
Okay, well, of course, now I'm intrigued. Like, well, where did I lose you?
I mean, I was like, urban ruins made sense, and then abandonment, space, and place. I was just like, this is like, my mind went to like the solar system. It was just like, I don't know where we are anymore. And then I'm thinking of like physics, which I'm sure is like related. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's kind of where my mind went. And I was just like, I don't know how these things work together. And then like abandonment, I'm guessing that's like abandoned places. I don't know. Tell me.
Okay. Well, what I'm working on, and all that stuff's part of it, it basically comes down to one essential question: where do things happen?
Okay.
And can you imagine things not happening anywhere? And that's a difficult thing for people to imagine. It gets really interesting, and it does get like, oh wow, it becomes a philosophical question. And frankly, it is a philosophical question, all the way back to Aristotle and well before then. So all that stuff happens, and you can say like, well, how do I relate to where I am? And how did this place come to be? And if this is a place, then what's space, and what's a site, and what's a location? And that's the stuff that I was interested in. And I started looking at buildings, very much like with the Sailor Moon stuff, how they treat Tokyo as a character. I was treating, when I was in film school, I was way more into like taking pictures of buildings and skylines and cityscapes than I was like, but Diana, I love you so much. You are everything to line. That didn't interest me. I was way more about like, look at this weird pulsing city. Oh my goodness. And so
they call it the something shot. What is it called? Anyway, go.
Yeah. But yeah, just establishing shots and landscapes and all that stuff. And I'm just thinking like, well, what does the city say to us, and what does place say to us, and what do buildings say to us about navigating where we are and all the processes that go into making a place. Because if you view place as a process, which is a geographical idea that Doreen Massey was very much on about, one of my favorite geographers, it's like, oh, wow, yeah, this isn't just coordinates on a map. This is all these things coming together. This is all these concerns and all these connections and all these, the internet's a series of tubes. Well, places are a series of interactions. And so what I've been looking at is abandonment as a communicative possibility and what goes into the abandonment of a place. Who decides if something's abandoned or not? Is it ruined? Is it not ruined? Can it be used? Can it be reclaimed? And that's what I'm studying.
Right. That's cool. So is there like a city planning aspect to it as well, I'm guessing?
I honestly chose something that would always, you mentioned physics earlier, that would always give me the opportunity to go, can I learn about something else? I did give myself an unsolvable problem, and that's why, because I want to be like, hey, how do I learn about architecture? Okay, cool. How do I learn about urban planning?
Right.
Okay, cool. How do I learn about like material science, about, what's the difference between this and this, or like why would somebody would use brick versus concrete? And I just keep expanding from there. I mean, up to and including physics and technology and all this other stuff.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. I love learning about new stuff. Like one of my favorite parts in grad school is learning about like Jane Jacobs and Robert Moses and like their ideas of what New York City should be.
Yeah, and I just reread her book, her big book, Death and Life of Great American Cities, and I've also read David Harvey's work based off that, and urban geography and things like that, and Henri Lefebvre and all this stuff that I love. Every now and then I'm trying to put a video of Crusher Jones that stuff on, that it's not just 5 hours long because it's so hard to condense. But no, that where we live is important, and what goes into the places where we conduct our day-to-day lives, it's worth analyzing that stuff, and it means something. And also, in my case, one nice thing about this topic is it's not like, hey, everybody, check me out. I get to ask about, hey, what's your life like? Where do you live? What are you into? What's cool? And when I mention abandoned buildings, I'll be at an event or something, and like one person will go like, oh, there's this place in my block, and then somebody will go, oh, there's this place over here, and they'll start telling me about their lives. And I think that's super cool. I love that. I really don't like the idea of like proselytizing academic personnel. Oh my goodness. It's just, no part of me is cool with it.
Yeah.
But
no. Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, please. The idea of being with others in community and communication, looking at what goes into that word and seeing how that takes place somewhere, and how somewhere is always changing and expanding. Like, we've never met, but we've talked a ton of times, right? But we found a way for us to be in the same place without being in the same place, and that all that stuff. It does get really highfalutin, but it's also very much tied into like, look at your street. What happens there? What's it connected to?
Right. That is really cool. Yeah, because it makes sense what you say too, like about something being like declared abandoned by like the city, but also the neighborhood still uses that space, so it's not necessarily abandoned.
Yeah, and that's a big, power is a huge aspect of what I study. A very huge aspect of it. Like, I move through the city in this way, by way of this right. Well, I don't have that right. Well, why don't I? Who gets to say? Who has a word in it? What part does money play? What part does communal need play? What processes and policies are in place? And also, to be very fair, all those like abandoned places and spaces, like I got into it by way of media and blogs and film, like just so many gorgeous photo books, and in Japanese specifically Haikyo, some great blogs to that extent. Like, that's all interesting to me. Like, I'm we'll leave a conference, I'm like, oh, I have a couple hours till my next presentation, and run out to look at the coolest building I can find,
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like so much fun. I'm so happy I understand what you're studying now, and it sounds fascinating, and now I want to read all the things about it.
Oh, I will. It's been great, because it's like I got into a school, and they flew me out there, and they're like, we don't know what to do with you, and I was like, thanks for flying me out here to tell me that. They have phones. Cool. Thanks for letting me in. Why am I here? But But it is something where I had to spend a decent amount of time trying to find the ability and the skill to express and communicate what I'm looking at, as opposed to saying, I study this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's that? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, because it's on me to communicate as clearly as possible, and it's really very much an art. So, all my fellow introverts, just keep going. You'll eventually get it. I promise. Hopefully, I will too. But
I mean, it seems like you are. But yeah, that's cool. You also have a YouTube channel when you're not studying all these things. What made you decide to do that?
That was basically paying homage to my own need to create things. I like making things. I get bummed out if I'm not making something. And also, I wanted something that would allow me to kind of build a voice and exercise a certain creative impulse that wasn't necessarily always academic. I mean, I do some academic stuff, but also to act as kind of a clearinghouse for, like, say, stories about, oh, well, here's the time I interviewed the guy that produced Cowboy Bebop, which is one of the videos I got to put up in the next couple days or so.
Please do.
Yeah, totally. It was awesome. It was a great conversation. Or, hey, if you're interested in moving to Japan, here's what I found from my experience. Or if you want to visit Japan, here's some things you should check out. Or if you're trying to get your trip together, here's some stuff you should look at doing as far as financing or whatever else. Just those little tips and things that you pick up through life. I was like, oh, well, why don't I make some quick videos with this cute little camera I have and record them here and edit them and put some music under them and put them out when I have the time and the ability to do so. So that's been something I've been working on more and more, and honestly, it's been super fun.
That's awesome. I love when people are able to find like a good creative outlet, like me in this podcast, for example.
Most definitely. No, remember how we came in touch? Is I found, I featured you in a video.
Right, yeah, and thank you for that again.
Oh, no, totally. I've got to say that this is actually, I'm a little nervy about talking about the YouTube thing, not in a bad way, but I've been so... Non-committal is very much the wrong word, but I've been very much about treating that as like, this is my garden, and it's important that I take care of it, but I don't want to turn my garden into my job. So I've been very much about exploring it and developing my voice and working with it when I find the time and when I'm in the place for it. I'm feeling good about it. I'm about to increase the number of videos I'm putting out, but I also was very important for me to just be like, hey man, you're developing your voice. Like, don't turn it into like a branding thing, because that can, there's something that kills fun. It's turning it into work.
Yeah, that is sadly the truth.
Yeah. Well, and like, you're mad consistent with your stuff. Props, as other guests have pointed out. But sometimes life gets in the way, and it's really depressing because some people will be like, hey, here's how I have 9 million followers on YouTube. And it's like, I'll get around to it. Like, I haven't even told my family or friends like that I have a channel. I just do this stuff. Yeah,
I mean, I think I mentioned this to you before, like before we were recording, like I try to keep it low maintenance. Like I'm very I'm the only person I have the answers to for this podcast. So I'm like, I obviously want to be consistent and I want it to be good, but
well, you're gonna have to answer those people that caught you on that 29/30 anniversary thing.
I know. Well, yeah, those people.
A reckoning coming your way.
Yeah.
Run!
I'm not looking forward to that.
All the smoke.
Yeah.
No, but that's something that I think is important for people, is like, you should have an opportunity to express yourself, but not feel like, foot's on my neck, express myself, like and subscribe, click the bell, please help me.
Yeah, no, that's when it gets not as fun.
Yeah, and also some of the stuff I want to do as it expands and I spend more time on it, it does take a significant amount of time. If it's a question of like, well, do I want to do a good job teaching this week and get this article ready for publication versus making this video, the video is not necessarily going to come last, but it's going to come when it comes.
Right. Yeah, that's fair too. Like, just being nice to yourself. I haven't released an episode every Monday. Sometimes it comes out on Tuesday or whatever.
Well, life's gonna happen.
Life happens.
Yeah, and I think paying attention to that, but I also think that the worst thing is like, you're either all the way on or all the way off. I'm like, no, this will happen as it happens. Like, I'm totally gonna have a thing on, say, this Japanese band that I like that I think is just nutso. That's awesome. I'm totally gonna have a thing about this this televised terrorist event that happened in Japan and all this other stuff. I'm going to get to that. I've got it written and ready to go. I'm just waiting for the moment where I have the time to feel completely in my head to do the work and get it all together and out there.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair. Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to find your legs too, like you said.
Yeah, that too. So if time and space weren't an issue, who would you want to interview, or what would you want to put a YouTube video out about? Or I should say, yeah.
Oh, you were saying? Sorry.
Oh, I'm not sure if that like captured everything I want to say. So like when I say like time and space, like you have infinite amount of time, and then also like you can go anywhere in time.
Yeah, I oh my goodness, my academic pretensions. Well, by time and space, dude. Yeah.
I've been watching Doctor Who. That's my definition for now.
Baller. By the way, I have a prof who's on my committee. He's a great guy. He's super into Doctor Who. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Time and space. Well, let's say there's a number of really cool places that I'd like to explore as cities, that I'd like to explore as communities, that I'd really like to spend some time with, but kind of being more direct. I think interview-wise, I'd love to talk to a guy named Tadao Ando, who is a Japanese architect who I'm just crazy about.
Sounds cool. I've never heard of him, so I'm just going to take your word for it.
Yeah, I think he won a Pritzker, but he does fantastic work, and it's all made of, brick and concrete, concrete and steel, not brick really. But then you see the inside of it, and it's like, it's so beautiful and wonderful. You're like, oh my goodness, it feels like natural. This doesn't feel like a prison. It's just insanely beautiful. But he was also self-taught. He was a boxer from Osaka. And there's all these great documentaries of him because it's just the entire architectural world falling all over him. Then they cut to interview footage and he's like, hey, don't use Facebook at work, okay? We can't bother with that. That's not worthwhile. Just this like gruff ex-boxer dude who makes these amazingly beautiful, breathtaking buildings. Like I would even just like, please, can we go have dinner? Like that would be job one. That's the kind of stuff that I get super, super stoked on. Like,
that's so cool. And if you had advice for anyone who wanted to either A, become a doctoral student, start a YouTube channel, or get into like this convention life, what would you tell them?
Be unemployable, because that's how it happened for me. Everything that I'm doing came about by way of connections, and came about by way of not networking, but networks and moments and interacting with people and just making friends and spending the time investigating it and looking at where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I had a couple of just straight jobs where it's like, let me show up and hate everything for 8 to 10 hours a day. And it was awful. It never clicked with me.
Yeah, no, that's not a fun life.
But basically,
on the job.
Oh yeah, totally. But for that stuff, I just say like, well, look at what you want to do and start seeing who does it. Ask around, kind of figure things out. A lot of this stuff came down to like, hey, listen, there's this thing we need done that we know that Evan has the ability to do it if we ask him. It wasn't necessarily like on a resume. It was just like, oh, we know this person. They've circulated enough. Like, seriously, I think a lot of it's just having the people skills and the ability to interact with other people. But no, this all kind of came about by way of being around and being accessible and saying, hey, if there's ever something that I could do for you in a professional capacity, let me know because y'all folks seem cool. Or, hey, I was interested in this. And a lot of it came by way of, like, I waited 10 years to work with the Sentai folks. I'd known them since way before then. But finally it was like, dude, we have this project. We'd love to have you in the mix with it. I was like, oh, yeah, totally. So, circulate, get your professional chops together, be responsible. Like, a lot of what I do is like, he can be at this place in time and not be somebody to worry about. Mm-hmm. And we can trust him and he's good for his word. And knows people. And, a lot of this stuff with, oh my goodness. So I did a life advice video on this. A lot of the stuff with media production is time, money, resources, pick two.
Yeah.
With the studying and things like that, that was basically like, people are like, why did you quit and go back to school? I was like, I didn't quit anything. I want an excuse to read 10 hours a day. So I have different goals and different aims with it. And also I'd worked for 20 years or a better part of 20 years by the time I got here. And so that meant that certain things were connecting back into my school experience I wouldn't have if I just came into my PhD straight from undergrad.
Yeah, no, I've actually had similar conversations with one of my good friends where I'm just like, I really just want to go back to school so I can just read and like learn. Like I literally just for that reason, but it's like, crippling debt, more debt. So
yeah,
one of these days maybe.
I think it's very much a case of like, and keep in mind, I did a lot of stuff that was completely unrelated to what I'm working on. It's not like I just sit under a tree all day with a book. There is an intensity to it that I relate to and I respect, but it's also like, I mean, I spent today, all of our grades went in, and I spent all day grading for about 7 or 8 days with put together, and I am so tired right now. And that has nothing to do with my studying. That's the teaching side of the equation. I think ultimately this is all coming back to figuring out what you want to do and what you enjoy and what you are interested in doing, and understanding that life is finite and that your life can be incredibly engaging and cool if you work to put yourself in a position where it can be.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
It's like a little the more you know star goes across.
You know.
Yeah,
imagination.
Yeah, I'm still, my family's like, what do you do? And I was like,
Right,
yeah.
Yeah, people ask me, well, people in my family ask me that like probably once every 6 months.
6 months? Oof. Ooh, you fancy. Like, it's like every time I see them, I'm like, what do you, huh?
Right. What's your job again, exactly?
Yeah, I don't, it kind of, I hoped for this and something else happened, but honestly, you can sort of put yourself in a position wherein cool things can happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy you didn't give the other advice I hear with a lot of people who get advanced degrees or just like don't is their advice. So that was nice. Here's some optimism.
I mean, it's also how one relates to power again. If we want to get fancy about it, and that's why if we're going to talk about a little show called Sailor Moon, that's why it's so relatable, and I'm so like struck by how like, wow, the whole thing is this person figuring this stuff out and feeling overwhelmed and lonely and having this sense of disconnection and overcoming that and seeing how to be in the world. Like, oh wow, this is like has way more emotional resonance to me than it did when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, those are cool building designs, and these I was the same age, so I could say these girls are cute and have it not be weird.
Yep.
Yeah. Now they're just cool, but
yeah.
No, it's totally one of those things of like
anime stuff. Yeah.
Adjusting to the world around you and understand and trying to understand it. And in my case, like, never felt like I fit in at work, never felt like I fit in at school, but it was like, oh well, you're gonna give me money and access to a research library. That's cool.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds awesome when you put it like that.
Well, you are the architect of your own happiness.
Ah, that makes sense.
I just wish everybody free healthcare too. So.
Yes, that would be nice.
Most def.
And then just like Sailor Moon had her Sailor Moon Says phrase at the end of every episode, I'm guessing this is when you were watching it in the mornings on the public access and such. What would your phrase be? So Sailor Evan Crusher Jones says,
hey, SMFC guest, stop spoiling the show for me. I'm slow, okay?
Well, is 29 years old, all right?
Oh, okay. Well, you got it right this time, Victoria.
Yeah, I did.
All right, cease the Twitter bots.
Exactly.
I'll get around to it. Like, life is, I'm still reading ancient religious texts when I get the free time. No, I'm not. Come on.
No excuses.
I've got so many good ones.
No excuses.
Been working mad hard to put this excuse train together. Got to keep it on the tracks.
Hey, man. You know, I got through school. I got some degrees. I watched it.
Yeah, but you're so much cooler than I am. You're like Sailor Mars. You have it together. I'm just sleepy all the time. My cat's awesome. And then,
I mean, I slept through most of high school, honestly. So I don't know.
Here's my question. Hey,
grad school.
Big question for you.
Yeah.
How many people say Luna is their favorite character?
Never.
Really?
Well, it hasn't happened.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. My one of my friends, he I think kind of like Luna and Artemis as characters. But his favorite scouts were Ami and Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no one really mentions Luna and Artemis in general.
I really, one thing that's fascinating about that show is, as the child of divorce, kind of looking back and feeling like I was in a similar situation. You know, not necessarily the interactions with other people or parental figures. It seemed like, again, I keep putting on this out, like how eminently relatable this has been, and how I've seen people connect with that kind of literally through the ages at this point, as the show is, as you said, 29 years old. And that's been one of the major, wow, people really have this feeling about it, because I mean, I watch it now, and like I said earlier, I was originally this design's cool, and I like how they directed this, and I really appreciate this vintage of animation, and that era of animation is just my favorite from Japanese anime. Like, after 95, I get real selective, I'm one of those retro heads, way before they were actually retro heads.
Are you on a retro crush at all?
I love Retro Crush. In fact, I did a review for them of their mobile app, and then 2 days later, we've launched our desktop. I was like, thanks, team.
You made it happen.
Yeah, they can send their checks to me, but actually, no, but that stuff is all, looking at that world and looking back at it now as an older person, going oh my goodness, I'm this, hands down. If I'd watched more of this, it would have been my favorite show. It's so eminently relatable, despite my obviously differences in lifestyle and location, and et cetera, et cetera. It really is a cool piece of fiction that it really transcends those boundaries, and that's just fascinating. People get so excited about it.
Yeah, that makes all the sense. It is super relatable. And so is Luna or Artemis, or Luna is one of your favorites as well, would you say?
I just cannot. We had a cat adopt us, and now, and you might have heard her. She wants to be on the interview. And
she's welcome.
Yeah. Just I became a cat person at 39, and I gotta say, wow, they're really cool. But
they are.
No, I appreciate her role very much. I think it's a hey, I gotta kind of get you into the mix with this stuff, and it's hard to explain, and there you are. And I just have a hard time not appreciating a well-meaning cat.
I hear that, especially if you've been around cats. I think a well-meaning cat would always be welcomed. So many cats are not so well-meaning, even though we love them.
Yeah, and she's going through this whole thing. You saw this whole thing to find herself. So that's a big part of that journey. You need you need somebody to lead you through the mystical journey.
Right. Well, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but I'm excited for you to watch.
Yes, I'm very excited.
The Sailor Moon movie.
Yeah.
Which is very Luna focused, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Lunacentric.
Yeah. Oh man.
My lunacy.
Lunacentric. I like the way that sounds. I don't know why. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to dub themselves in the name of the old band, a lunachick. As far as thank you. Thought I'd get one horrible pun in there.
Done that. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. No, I'd call myself that. And then what's next for you, and where can people find you?
Okay, well, you can follow me on Twitter, where I have occasional insights into stuff. Mostly just posting BS, though, at Crusher Jones. I'm on YouTube at Crusher Jones. You can find that through the Twitter channel as well, and we'll put up all the links, I assume. And yeah, I'm just doing that stuff there. I do not have a dedicated website for my academic work. I'm putting one together, but right now I'm busy also explaining how I'm going to refurbish a shipping container so that I can write a dissertation in it as my dissertation. So been a little busy there.
That sounds awesome also.
Hey, if you can't go to the ruin, you've got to bring the ruin to you.
Yeah. Really get inspired in the space, as you might say.
Well, I in the place, actually. Now, I want to see what it was like to make a place. So I'm pitching that as my project right now. And hopefully by the time this airs, people will be cool with it. But it's really interesting, because I was like, you can't do anything with a communication degree. I'm like, cool, check out my house.
Right.
Like that's my goal with it. I just want to see what it was like to to build something as a process and to see a process come together in terms of trajectories that, in the case of global shipping, are very, very influential.
Yeah. I love how you say people will be cool with it. Like, it's not like a whole like panel of people who will be like intensely asking you questions.
Oh man, I gotta go defend some exams on Friday, and like I was like, oh yeah, I'm really excited about this, and then I realized all these people are incredibly academically intimidating.
Yeah.
Oh
like,
man,
hope they're cool with this idea.
Hey everybody,
Right.
just come in there with like Ray-Bans on, like it's Tom Cruise in Risky Business. Like, oh my
gosh,
god, they would throw virtual staplers at me through Zoom so fast.
Definitely.
No, but that's where they can find me on Twitter at Crusher Jones and Crusher Jones on YouTube. And yeah, new videos coming out soon, new stuff coming out soon, doing some interviews, working on some new projects I'm really excited about. And yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to I'll be looking out for that interview with the producer for Cowboy Bebop, one of my other favorite shows.
It's great.
Awesome.
He was so cool, and one of the nice things about when I was an active Japanese animation journalist was like learning how to interview people, but also at the end of the interviews going, hey, I just want to say that I was a really big fan of this one thing you worked on in 1987, and them going, you know that? Oh my god, I'm so happy.
Yeah, it's always nice to talk to someone about something that like no one else really pays attention to as much.
Yeah. Well, when I asked Dai Sato, who I believe wrote one of the Cowboy Bebop episodes or some of them, he also worked on Ergo Proxy. When I asked him at a convention if the show was a depiction of the struggle between structuralism and post-structuralism, he just got up and hugged me and said, thank you.
Aww.
I was like, finally, my nerd philosophy paid off.
Right. Who would have knew? So you're studying anime. Why didn't you just say that?
I'm living anime.
We're living anime.
Snap in a circle. But I'm living the depressing parts where everything's falling apart and I'm basically living cyberpunk anime without any of the benefits or the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, they canceled that Olympics, so it happened.
I mean, maybe a splash of Sailor Moon. Just a splash.
Yeah, let's make it happen, please.
Yeah. I'm sure there's something. They visited some abandoned places, I'm sure. Went to that playground that one time that no kids were at night, I think.
Well, that sounded creepy. Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
No, they traverse the city in an interesting way, and I think they interact with place well, and I think they're cool characters, and I've really enjoyed delving back into it. And I look forward to talking to more Moonies about it, because I gotta say, I really felt like I missed out on this, so the time is not lost on me now.
I am so happy you are back.
Thanks for having me, by the way. You are awesome. It's been super fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. This was awesome.
Oh, I'm all the love's on this side of the table, and again, I appreciate your work so much, and it's been so cool to listen to so many great guests talk about their lives and what they do and how they got there and where they're from, where they're going to, and how this show has played a role in their lives. It's just it's been incredibly moving to meet so many people who have such a connection with it, and to hear more about that kind of stuff, and to be one of the chosen now is a big thing for me. So I appreciate you letting me sneak in.
Oh gosh, well, you are more than deserving. There was no nepotism here. You especially when you sent me your bio, I was like, wow, you've done a lot. We have a lot to talk about. This is awesome.
Wow, you're obviously unhinged. No, I just
not at all.
You stick around long enough and be nice to people, and you get to do some interesting stuff, and hopefully you get to talk about it.
Well, I'm gonna replace your Sailor Moon says with that.
Stop spoiling it for me. That sentiment's gotta stand, please.
No, it'll stay.
Just a mountain of salt.
Yeah. But once again, I am Victoria L. Johnson, and you can find me at Miss Old School. It's Old School with a K. And you can find the podcast at Moonies Club on Twitter and Moonies_Club on Instagram. And we have merch now, so if you want to shop some Mooney merch, we have some stuff at mooniesclub.com. And thanks for listening, Moonies.
And it's dope merch too. I'm feeling it 100%.
Thanks.
It's gorgeous.
Thank ya.